Welcome back, family.
All right, all right.
Mangitu Mzadi.
Mangitudu Adam.
Mangitudu will.
And today, family, we it's our duty and our mission to talk about the news and what's going on in and around Africa, to motivate you guys to move to Africa and to really just shine light on Africa, specifically Gambia.
And it's important for us to always share our journey and, to help that narrative when it's moving back to Africa, specifically us three, it's the Gambia. But anywhere in Africa you're moving to, you need that real advice from people that's actually on the ground. And, that just makes sense for our episode 9 today. We have Why Africa? And that's the topic for today. So go ahead, baby.
Yeah. And, before we talk about any of our subjects, we always want to start our show off with some kind of positivity.
Yep.
So we have the quote of the day.
Yes, sir. Here we go.
Will,
Right.
what's the quote of the day?
Right, let's get into it. So, the quote of the day is really simple today. Do today what should be done.
Okay.
Do today what should be done.
Right.
There we go.
Right.
There we go. All right.
That's what it is. That's what it is.
There.
Yeah.
Do today what should be done.
What should be done?
And it's simple, it's to the point, and it makes sense. I mean, I feel like a lot of times it's easy for us to push things off for the next day or the next week or the next month, knowing that we should have did it yesterday.
And a lot of times we do stuff that we shouldn't be doing at all.
Mm-hmm.
And your day, your day is filled with our things that you could have done is filled with things that you should not be doing. And so that obstructs your day and obstructs progress and growth.
Right.
Absolutely.
So like Will said, family, do today what should be done. Okay. All right. And then we kind of want to, segue into our news of the day. That also comes from our wonderful partner, Will.
All right, yeah. So let's get into it, right? So, as we always say here on GCO Network, we don't give you nothing we made up and we just guessing and all that stuff. We have receipts. This is an article that we found, and it was written by Muhammad Lamin Drama, and it's from the Fatu Network. That's where it's from. That's where I'm getting this information from. So this is a quote from the Minister of Youth Sports. We are almost there. The sports minister believes the independent stadium there in Gambia is close to meeting the CAF standard after preliminary inspection. So what does that mean, right? So what that means is the Confederation of African Football. If you remember last year, with all the pools and stuff and all the soccer going on, well, not last year, really in February, and Gambia's team performed really well. Well, they actually made it to the playoffs and stuff like that, but they couldn't play at home. They had to go and travel to play what should have been their home games. So the Gambian government has taken an interest into in their people, in their team, and this is commendable to the government in that regard, in that respect. And so now the Minister of Youth and Sports, which is the Honorable Bakari Y. Baje, he said that the Independence Stadium is close to meeting the CAF standards for inspection. So right now they're waiting on the inspection to be completed. The final inspection has not been done for the approval. Once that's done, they'll post that for everybody. And then, look, we'll be able to watch Gambian football right there at home in Gambia's beautiful upgraded stadium.
Right.
Okay. Um, and so this is a big deal. This is a big deal. And here at GCO Network, we like to talk about impact, right? So when you look at it from a perspective of impact, you think, okay, so stadiums are multi-use facilities, right? So with that, you can say, okay, now you can hold bigger concerts. You can have multiple venues now in the Gambia, commercial sized, you know, and that's gonna open up a whole new plethora and avenue of tourism stuff, sports stuff that we'll be able to do there. Whole bunch of stuff that folks will be able to enjoy inside of that newly refurbished stadium. So
Right.
that's pretty much everything in a kind of a nutshell right now.
Yeah, that's big because that's going to be a really good bolstering to their economy. Like you said, events,
Right.
festivals, business conventions.
Right.
They can have
Right.
a lot of different stuff that they host annually there, and it's a great environment for that. And even outside the stadium, right? Because the stadium brings a lot of customers and a lot of people. And so outside, if people set up their shops and their vendors and stuff like that, that's a lot of money that's generated. So this is really big.
Right. And a lot of folks don't understand how good the Gambian football team really is. It really, they really don't understand that. They're really good. And I think I'm gonna have to do some research, but I'm gonna have to check that. I think that Gambia does not have an Olympic team.
Okay.
Oh wow.
And this is kind of paving the way. If you look,
Right.
I know somebody will probably think, "Oh man, how are you comparing stadium refurbishing to going forward, fast forward into Olympic team?" Well, you have the venue. You make the plays, you make the playoffs, you get in the pools, you win some games, you get some notoriety, you get in all the athletes you need. Because when you think about it, a lot of the European teams have a lot of Gambians and Senegalese on their team.
Right.
I'm just gonna leave that right there. I'm just gonna leave that right there. So yeah, I mean, and they do have a national team.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, they have it. And they're called the Scorpions, in case anybody's wondering.
The Scorpions.
So the Gambian national soccer team is called the Scorpions.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and they're one of their top scorers is Hassan Cisse.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
So yeah, all of our soccer fans, go check out, some of those, some of the Scorpions games and start supporting Gambia teams.
Absolutely.
And maybe you could come and visit Gambia during soccer season and watch, them actually play firsthand live.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So, I think that our last thing before we really start getting into our topics is always our word of Wolof.
Yes, family. And today for our word of Wolof, we have Dama Mar. So Dama Mar means I'm thirsty. Dama Mar. Dama Mar. I'm thirsty. So anytime you're in a restaurant or you're trying to teach your children how to say I'm thirsty in Wolof, you say Dama Mar. And Wolof is really, it rolls off the tongue. Exactly. Dama Mar. It rolls off the tongue really well.
Yeah.
It sometimes almost sounds a little Spanish with the R's, how you can roll them. But the language it translates very well. And next episode we'll have another word of Wolof that sounds a little bit similar to this. The front word Dama is the translation. So just keep that in mind. Dama Mar. And a lot of words have Dama in front of it. So as we go, you'll see that naturally translates.
Right. Dama Mar.
Okay.
Dama Mar. I'm thirsty.
Dama Mar. And then I think that also speaks volumes a little bit what Adam was just saying, which is that it kind of sounds Spanish, the model, how it's supposed to roll off, and it shows you the origin of, you know, language, and how and reminds us how everything that ever was, everything that ever is started in Africa and originated from, you know, our roots.
Absolutely. Everything has a root language.
Right.
That's but that brings us, you know, nice little segue into our topic today, which is Africa.
So why, you know, I feel like every single person that talks about repatriation, and moving anywhere to Africa always kind of have an episode where they talk about why Africa, why are we moving to Africa. If you check out PBTV, we kind of talk about that a little bit, but I think it's great for us to really revisit this question and to give GCO family all of our reasonings as to why we have chosen Africa, why we feel like Africa is just the place to be. And so I want to start off with you, Will, because I feel like this is your expertise just a little bit, which is commercial opportunities. So what do you think about that when you think about commercial opportunities in Africa?
You know, you think about moving there. Why Africa?
So, you know, definitely the economic opportunities, right? And that usually is what'll draw you. And when you think about economic opportunities, you know, you're thinking about, okay, you got significant economic growth starting to happen across the board, right? So that's with agriculture, that's with manufacturing, and we're speaking specifically Africa across the board. This is including the whole continent, end to end, top to bottom, side to side. And those are some of the fields that's starting to expand. I'm talking about everything from technology, how it's being used, e-commerce. All of these things are happening, and they're starting to, what we like to use, you know, sometimes the term we like to use is they're starting to snowball, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're starting to snowball. So, and then what else is attached to that? You know, other than trying to start a business in Africa, any country you choose to pick, you know, I really don't think you can probably go wrong. You just have to understand the country you're going to, essentially, and what their laws are, what their taxes or their tariffs are. And then, okay, now you make a good business decision on what's the risk reward, how are you going to execute it, what are the logistics, what is going to be my process, what is my plan, what am I going to need, you know, all of those things. And if folks want to really kind of dig into it, they can go and check out some of my previous episodes here at GCO Network. I mean, they're readily available on our channel. And you have to include cost of living into that.
Absolutely.
If you do a side-by-side comparison, you say, okay, I'm in the West, I'm in America. Okay. When you start thinking economic comparison, right? What you can afford versus what you can have. I'm going to say that again. What you can afford versus what you can have, right? And so if you kind of put that just take that and put that cap on for a second and think about that and compare that, it's night and day. It's night and day. I mean, you know, in the West, you have everything is costing so much. Food is almost tripled. Gas, just being able to work. You're almost working just to live. Like you're not working to really get to that point where you're comfortable. You just barely, you know, you just barely touching the surface right there. But choosing Africa, you know, from a commercial standpoint, for me, for business, it was easy. It was easy, specifically Gambia. Let me just be more specific than that, specifically Gambia, because I've done a cost analysis and a feasibility analysis of all the other countries, based off my pockets and my available funding, right? But these are decisions that you have to make when you're trying to do business. So And, as far as, basically commercial opportunities, considering specifically Gambia, I understood what the tariffs were. I understood what it was going to cost me, what the cost effectiveness would be, what the feasibility would be, what the sustainability would be, and what I would need. And out of all the places, considering the type of business I was going to venture into, it was the most affordable for me. And I really like the concept of being on the ground floor with economic growth. And it provided me that opportunity. And I just feel like I should have a stake in that. And I will tell you this, from as a business owner, I feel actually really doggone good having a stake in that, saying, hey, I have something that contributes to the community that also has an impact on the community and areas around me, and it's a positive impact. So I feel good about that.
Right. Well, we thank you for having that business. Because one is something that we know that Gambia needs, which is ice. We know that every place needs ice.
Right.
From hospitals to schools to events,
Right.
to restaurants. So
Right.
that's definitely something essential. I definitely think that every community eventually should graduate to.
Right.
And then, besides though, we do move to Gambia for economic reasons. That's not anything that people are hiding, but I think it's a deeper thing when it comes, especially for us Black people, African Americans, that are coming to Africa right now. It's a big, big, big spiritual calling. If you are following this journey, not just of us, but of many, many, many other YouTubers right now that are journeying to Africa, that live in Ghana, that live in Tanzania, that live in Nigeria. And if you listen to their stories, you'll start to hear a lot of similarities, which is they felt a pull to Africa. They felt a
Right.
calling. They felt like the ancestors was on their back saying, you need to go home. So how do, Adam, I want to ask you, how do you feel about your spirituality in this process with moving to Africa? Do you think that that's one of the biggest reasons why you're going to Africa?
It's definitely a connection between those that want to move to Africa on the spiritual level. I was having a conversation recently where I was talking about, how in America, as far as Christianity goes and religion, Black people are some of the most biggest practicing people of religion here in America. And that's been a historical thing, ever since we were brought here, and that's the religion that we were given. That's what we've been mainly focused on. But it's been a movement lately of a spirituality movement, and I feel like it's shifting to where religious is spiritual, but now it's shifting in the concept of people understanding who they are as people, and they're using spirit to understand where they want to go in the future. So right. I definitely feel like it's important. The spiritual calling part about it is important, because those who have that spiritual connection who move, as well as the economic connection, because it takes it all. But those who have that spiritual calling as well also are offering, and they put their best person forward. They try to be the best person that they can be, honest dealings. They try to do good business with people, good friendships. And that spiritual calling is very important too, because a lot of times, we have a calling, but it's not in the right direction. And that goes back to what Will's quote of the day was, which was, make sure you're doing what needs to be done. So sometimes you can have a spiritual calling and you just close your ears to it, and now you miss an opportunity, or you miss something that you could have had done. So that spiritual calling is super, super important. And faith is really important too, because we would always preach planning and research on this channel, but sometimes you can research, or you can do that for too long and you miss the opportunity. And so sometimes it's that faith that helps you push yourself off the porch, and now you hit at just the right time, and everything works out. So it has to be a little bit of both research and spirit, and that's how you're going to get to where you want to be in your journey.
Right. And Will, to have a business in Gambia, you have to have been to Gambia at least once or twice to say, I know that this business will work here. I know I'll make connections to get this to start. So before that even came about, why were you in Gambia? What what made you, was there any spiritual calling that led you to Gambia specifically?
Yeah, so I've always wanted to travel to Africa with my entire family, right? I always wanted to do it. And I wanted to go to a place that I felt like I was drawn to, or I wanted to come to. And so we kept looking, and we kept watching, and we kept looking, and we kept watching, and we kept reading all the blogs and and listen to the people talk about Gambia and what have you. So we were like, you know what? Let's make our first trip as a family to Gambia. Gambia, there's a lot of information on available about Gambia and stuff that's going on. So we did that. So we got on the plane, short story, we got over and we landed. And when the doors opened, it was like we here. Like you could feel it. Like it was like, man, we here. Like we landed and I felt like it was a homecoming. I felt comfortable. That was in my energy, that was in my spirit. And it was like, it wasn't just me. See, it'd be a different conversation if it was just me. But my daughter felt the same way. My son felt the same way. My wife felt the same way. So I was like, what? What is happening? So we had an amazing time in Gambia. We did some touring, we went on some trips, and we went to a couple of villages and stuff, especially out to Lamb Lodge. We did that trip, and we walked through a couple of villages, and everybody that you came across was smiling. They were greeting. They were comfortable with you. I mean, right off the rip. You know what I'm saying? It was just like, hey, we went to the village on the boat tour, and the guy was like, y'all hungry? Cause we got some bench in here. Like, you know what I'm saying? If y'all thirsty, now you're gonna have to get your own water out the well, but we got you. You know what I'm saying? I was like, they don't know us. Exactly. They don't know us. But whatever they had, they offered. If you in Gambia, I'm going to say this. I'm going to go all the way out. If you in Gambia and it's lunchtime and you walk up to some Gambians and say, hey, man, I'm hungry. 9 out of 10 times, they gonna feed you.
Right.
You know why? Because Gambians eat together.
Yeah.
They eat together. When have you just really sat down somewhere and seen a bunch of Gambians eating by themselves individually?
Nope.
You were there. We were there together. So, that place just, it just touched the whole family. So I can definitely understand, about this topic of the spiritual calling to Africa and to the Gambia. Because once you've been and you walked on the beaches and you've been into Bijilo and Senegambia and Serekunda and all these places and Pyran and you've been out in all these different places, you're like, okay, so why am I not here again? So that's just what it is. And I mean, man, it's such an awesome event that you guys are taking such a big step with your entire family. You guys are young, you have beautiful kids, and you are moving with the ancestors. And a lot of people don't even understand that. Can you imagine, like, okay, you talking about, it's not even that we're a lost nation. I'm not saying we're a lost nation, but what I'm saying is we had a lot of things stripped from us spiritually, right? And so we're missing that peace. We're missing that spiritual calmness, that understanding that comes with culture, with knowing who you are, where you came from, why you're here, what your ancestors did before you, who they were. And when you're stripped of that, so you spend your whole time just reaching just reaching for it all over the place. You're just reaching, right? And most of the time, you know, with us as a nation of people, as a culture, we're all over the planet. But most of the time, if you talk to a few people, they're always going to say, if they have not been, they're going to say, man, I want to go to Africa. And then now it begs the question, why is that built into us? We want to go there. No matter where we are, we want to go there. So I just feel like that's part of that spiritual calling that you're talking about. And I feel like that's definitely just a yearning to the ancestors to get us to go home. To go home.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's definitely something that we always talk about, which is we're doing something that our ancestors only dreamed of.
Right.
We're returning back to home for them, and they're watching us, and through us though, they're able to go back home and they're able to touch ground again. So, and people don't really even realize what spirits they have attached to them that goes everywhere that they go. And so that's just a way that they're able to help, you know, uplift our spirits, but help uplift theirs as well.
Right.
So I think another reason that we've seen people really say why Africa is the weather, the temperature, and you know, the beautiful skies. So personally, when we were there in Gambia, it was beautiful every single day. Every single day.
You couldn't beat it.
Beautiful. And it's nothing like breathing in that sea salt air. That sea air is nothing like that. I feel like we didn't feel as good as we felt in Africa in a long time. In a very long time. And so, Adam, what do you feel like that's one of the biggest reasons why you decided to move or want to move to Africa, the yearning?
Well, I wouldn't say that's one of my like biggest reasons as far as like the weather. Of course, when before you go somewhere, you know, you've never been there before, so you really can't gauge. You can look up reports on like, oh, the weather's good, you got beaches, but until you go there, you don't really know how the weather's going to be, right? And so, you know, beforehand, I was mostly thinking about my family, how successful we're going to be, and things of that nature once we get to that environment. But once we landed on that ground and we got outside, and I said, whoa, the breeze doesn't stop. You know, the weather this is what I imagine people say when they say, oh, it feels like Florida, or it feels like Galveston, or, you know, because I grew up in Houston, and I've been to Galveston several times, so I do know, you know, the breeze coming off the ocean, how that feels. But man, just the weather in the Gambia and the Smiling Coast, it's the Smiling Coast for a reason. You know, the feel of that, the energy, the people, you know, the beach boys, you know, they have real beach boys, you know, out there that live on the beach. You know, they wake up, they go out, fish, they come back, they do tours, you know, so the weather is a big part of the culture of the Gambia, just like a Florida or something like that. You know, the weather is a big part of it. And so those who want to come to a climate where you're not worrying about blizzards, or you're not worrying about heat scorching weather where, you know, there's droughts for 8 months with wildfires like California or something like that, this is a great place for you to either have a vacation or to live, because the weather year round, there's only 2 months where it rains a lot. Think about that. 12 months out of the year, only 2 months. The rainy seasons from August and September really are the most heavy rain season. So besides that, you have great weather. So it's really a beautiful place, in my opinion.
Right.
When
you were down there with your family, Will, what did you think about the weather?
Oh man. We've been to a lot of Caribbean islands. We've been to a lot of warm places, but this one was in Africa, and it was different. It wasn't. You really couldn't even compare them. They were similar, but you really couldn't compare them because I didn't feel connected to those Caribbean places that I went to. I didn't feel connected in the way that I feel connected in the Gambia. And there's another thing with people of color, specifically Black people. 9 out of 10 times, if you have a blood panel done, you are vitamin D deficient, right? And there's research been done on this. People are welcome to Google and check it. But people of color, specifically African descent, are not supposed to live past the 34th parallel south. What does that mean? That means, imagine the earth with a ball, right? Let's just imagine that. And around it is a called latitude, right? Or lat lays flat, latitude, right? So that band represents the equator, right? So from the equator to Africa is 34 degrees south to that parallel, to dead center of Africa, right? So there's been some comparisons and some scientific comparisons done. Folks that live in Africa and those of us that live outside of Africa. Those that live in Africa have more vitamin D in surplus naturally because of the amount of sun they get and the sun exposure they get versus those of us that live in the West, where I think it's the 45th or 49th parallel, right? So that's why when we start getting older, away from Africa and in other countries, we start having these joint issues and these skin issues and all these health issues. That's because we are out of our area. We are out of our natural habitat. Think about it. If you compare, you've already been to Gambia just like me. You see a 70-year-old Gambian versus a 70-year-old from anywhere in America. They're completely two different people. Physically, we're just talking physically. When you put them side by side, the 70-year-old from Africa, born and raised, looks completely different in most cases than the 70-year-old. Same life, same opportunity, same everything, and you put them side by side, and they look different at the same age, completely different.
It's like
because of where they came from.
Oh yeah, it's like bringing a polar bear to Texas. You're taking something out of its environment. It's not meant to be there.
Exactly. But there is scientific studies that support what I'm saying. Somebody would spend 10 minutes of research via Google or Wikipedia or whatever you choose as your research engine. You'll find out exactly what I'm talking about is exactly true. And so, for health reasons, the weather is amazing. The weather is absolutely amazing. How many people did you run across in Gambia that had bad skin? I'll wait.
They didn't have bad skin.
I'll wait. We're talking about Gambians now. You show me one had bad skin.
If you did see somebody that had a little bit off skin, they were foreign. They're like from Sierra Leone or they're from somewhere else. They weren't from Gambia.
So that's just my little piece on the weather. But yeah, the weather's awesome. It's awesome.
Okay, so and this, I feel like this is I'm not gonna say this is specifically for this next topic. It's specifically for African Americans. I think it can go for Afro, whatever, whether you were born in Europe, Canada, Japan, Jamaica, wherever you were born. I think that a lot of the spiritual calling that people get, or the reason why people are going and moving to Africa, is because they are trying to obtain freedom, true freedom, in a sense of not having a government that is trying to kill them, not having neighbors that are trying to kill them, and also having political freedom, to where something that you do, say vote initiative that you start actually reaches the government and influences things.
Economic freedom.
Exactly.
It's one of the biggest things, right? For us, having a tiny house freed us economically to help us be able to take this move to Africa.
Right.
And so one of the biggest reasons why people move to Belize and people move to different places in Africa and these other places, these other parts of Italy and stuff like that, where the cost of living is very low, is the economic freedom. And we know today money rules the world. We know today your bills, your 9 to 5, living up to the Joneses and your neighbors next to you, that runs everything, and it's monotonous and it becomes very tiresome. And so a lot of us now are finding that the economic freedom, not just the freedom from persecution, but because that is a big part of it too, the mass incarceration and the things like that we go through. But for me personally, the economic freedom of being able to not having to go clock in every day to a job, being able to retire at 30 years old. Anxiety being able to retire at 25 and focus on our businesses. That's important. And more of us need the freedom of space to figure out that freedom of mind that we really need.
Right. And I think that the space part is the biggest thing for me, because I think that you don't realize it or you don't really think about this, but when you're living door to door, apartment to apartment, and you don't have your own backyard, you don't have your own front yard, your own side yard, your own garage, that takes away of a lot of freedom that you have, because now you only have your little bitty corner, your little bitty box, and that's all you're given. You don't have the ability to say, hey, today I want to do a cookout in my backyard and invite all your friends over if you wanted to, or hey, I want my kids to be able to go outside and play and do this, and you don't want to throw them out to the concrete jungle, so you would rather have a backyard or some kind of area that is yours.
Or even spiritual things, like you want to go outside and meditate in the sun, or just things like that, or work out in your front yard. You look crazy in some of the neighborhoods in America trying to go outside and meditate. They're gonna look at you like, hey, Mr. Wilson is kind of, or they gonna look, you outside just lifting weights in your front yard. Now they have some type of stereotype about you because you lifting weights in your front yard. So it's a whole different atmosphere when you have that freedom of space.
Yeah,
right,
definitely.
Right, and there are a couple of reasons. You think about civil and political rights. You think about holding public office. Where else are you going to see an entirely black cabinet and entirely black government? I'm talking about city, state, and federal level, right? Everybody look like you. Yeah. So, and that's just off the top of my head, and then you did, just like you said, Adam, touching on that, economic empowerment, right? So when you say economic empowerment, you talk about the wages, you talk about entrepreneurship, right? Your access to it, and that's freedom. All that's tied together. So, hell, if I know I can start 2-3 businesses in Africa and it's affordable, it's something I can do, that's freedom. That's freedom, right? That's real freedom. and then social justice, equality. Just check the block, man. All of the above. All of the above. But mainly cultural identity. Everybody got twists over here. Everybody got locks. You know what I'm saying? Anybody gonna ask you about your hair because their hair look just like you.
Yeah.
Right? Anybody gonna ask you about your skin color because their skin color is just like yours. Nobody's gonna ask you about your heritage, where you came from. They know where they came from. You see what I'm saying? So that to me is how it ties in with freedom. That's just
right.
That's just my thing.
Yeah, I would say that we 100% agree. And then even just we saw that while we were down there, what you were just talking about, where we're able to express ourselves through our hair in natural styles and natural ways, and not feel like we aren't able to look professional or be professional. Nobody's second guessing us just because of our hairstyle. And we even saw where we went to certain places that we would consider professional establishments, and they had hair wraps,
they had a dashiki
on their head,
or traditional dress.
Right.
Here in America, you can't go in any type of African traditional dress to an interview and expect to get that interview. Expect to get that job. They're gonna look at you like, you're not professional.
Yep.
You're not culturally appropriate for this atmosphere. Yep. And so, you'll be shunned.
Yep.
So definitely that freedom of tradition, that freedom of your culture is there in droves.
And with that freedom, we get the chance to build whatever it is we want, but specifically to try and start to build legacies for our families. Because here in the West, not to say that it's impossible, but it is very, very hard to build a legacy for your family. Not just having a good life insurance, and when you're gone, they paid out a little bit, and then they don't know what to do with the money, so it doesn't matter anyway. Or that causes a big fight in the family to where the two sisters or the brother are fighting over who should get the money because you never finished your will.
And legacy is more than just what your parents taught you, and now you practice what your parents preach after they're gone. Legacy is also what are your parents able to leave you to ensure the success of the next generation. Exactly. And I can just speak from our experience. All three of us here, our parents didn't leave us a business that we could, leave our children. And that's a big part of legacy. And that's a big part of our movement to repatriate, is being able to sustain and to build a legacy. Like Will has Batu K Ice Company in the Gambia. He can leave that to his son. We have VEG. We can leave that to our kids. We're working on real estate and several other projects. So that involvement and that ability to build that legacy and take your family to the next level, it's not impossible in America. It's not impossible anywhere else in the world. That's not what we're saying. But what we're saying is, in Africa, when you have people that look like you, like Will just said, when you have a cabinet of politicians that look like you're more inclined, you have the likelihood for you to have opportunity is there. You have more of a likelihood to get those loans. You have more of a likelihood to get community support. You have more of a likelihood to get to where you're trying to be at a younger age.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. So what's your take on moving to Africa to try to build a legacy, Will?
I actually listen. I'm gonna upset some people, right? I think that I think it's the cheat code. And here's why I say that. Because we don't have to bang our heads up against the wall of bureaucracy and politically correctness and civil obedience and all this other stuff, right? You can go to Africa, you can legit open a business within an affordable range of your funding or your available funding. Once you figure out what your niche is and what your impact is going to be and how you want to present yourself as a business owner and a professional in that particular country, right? And it's less red tape, and the results are immediate. They're fast. They're fast because they're still growing in most cases. Not in every country, but in Gambia, for example, it's still growing, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. That's a really good thing because you get to be on the ground floor, right? And so I think coming to Africa and in particular Gambia, some people look at Gambia and go, oh man, it's the smallest country, blah, 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 blah. I don't like, well, everybody have their own likes and don't likes and blah, blah, blah. But I'm just talking about for me right now. And for me, Africa, not just Gambia, but Africa's the cheat code, man. If you want to come here and start a business, you see all the time. If you think we lying, go to YouTube. Go to YouTube and spend about an hour on YouTube just looking for Black entrepreneurs in Africa, Black business owners in Africa. people in Africa that are doing positive things that are impacting not just the community that they're in or the country that they're in or the local economy that they're in, but also their own families, their own core families, which they don't have the opportunity to do that and move like that in the West. And that's why I say it's the doggone cheat code. And listen, if somebody want to question me on it, they want to challenge me on it, hey, the doors of the church are open. Right. If you want to challenge me on it, then let's have a conversation with GCO Network and you come and prove us wrong. I challenge anybody across the planet to come and do that.
That's true.
Right.
And that's spoken. Right. Couldn't have been spoken better.
Right. Yeah. And y'all, come on now, accept the challenge and come. Yeah. Gambia, come on. And try to build something, because just like Will, just gave y'all the information about, you can literally go on YouTube and you can watch someone's journey of them going when they first decided they wanted to go to Africa, while they're in Africa, their struggles through Africa and starting a business, them starting a business and starting to get clientele and starting to generate, economics in there, and them going from that to having an office space, and then going from that to having, people working from them, and then you turn around and you realize they only been there for 2 years. So Africa is the cheat code to building a legacy for your Black family, because it's Black businesses for Black people, shopped by other Black people. So no matter what, they're going to support you. They're going to try to help you, and will be also turning around and helping them, because any form of economy that's formed in the Gambia that is going to help generate money within the community is helping, your people, your own people.
Absolutely.
I would say that, lastly, we have one of the reasons why people really, choose Africa as far as Black people is the culture. Is to experience what real culture is, because as we know, we have lost our culture. We were stripped of our culture. It's not that it was just completely lost. It was stripped from us during slavery, and the things and the traumatic events that we've gone through. And then you turn around and you have the systemic injustice and the systemic slavery that we're under still to this day. And that has stripped away all culture that we might have had. I remember when I was younger, even, we used to get to, like, the family used to get together, and it was at least 200 to 300 of us that would be together at one spot in one location. We got cookouts. You meet the cousins that you never knew you had. People asking you, do you remember me? And you ain't never seen them before in your life. And as I've gotten older, that I've seen that stopped. And nobody else, none of my friends' families are doing it. None of my coworkers' families are doing it. And so we're slowly but surely losing family. And if you lose family, you lose culture, because the elders are the ones that help you remember and pass down traditions and things like that. So once you lose your elders, once you lose that connection, you lose that culture. And so I definitely think a big reason why a lot of people move back to Africa is for that reason. So what do you think about that, Adam?
Yeah, definitely. Like you said originally, America will strip, a lot of things as far as culture and things of that nature from different demographics. It's not just Black people. Here, there's a heavy indoctrination that goes on for you to get behind the red, white, and blue, and fly the flag of convenience and cater to the tradition, the holidays, and all that stuff like that. And it strips you eventually over time. It strips you of, if you have Italian heritage, or if you have Hispanic heritage, you have African heritage, you start to adopt, where you are. You are what you eat. So
we assimilate.
Yeah, that is something that, we as Africans, when we go back to Africa, that's one of our defining things. a lot of times we hear about the lions, we hear about Egypt, the pyramids, and things like that when you're young. So you have a little brief initiation into the culture of Africa, but it's nothing like actually going there. There's nothing like actually going there and seeing the kente cloth, seeing the ladies carrying the baskets over their head to the market, seeing the atmosphere of sea of black faces, seeing the music, seeing the streets and how they operate their goods and sell. And you see donkeys still taking certain materials here, or you just see the food, the spices. There's so many things that go into that culture. And like Will was saying, you know, there's something in us that calls us spiritually back to that. You know, even though it was stripped from us, it's still inside of us, because black people, we've been in Africa for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So genetically, it's in us to come back. It's in us. That culture is in us, from hip hop music to our drums that we have in the music, to even like Mzadi said, how she used to meet up with her family members. That's something that they still do today in Africa. In America, it's more of a traditional thing than a cultural thing, because the cultural aspect has been stripped. So now it's just traditional for us to meet up and barbecue with each other and things of that nature. But culturally, we still do that in Nigeria. We still do that in Ghana. You know, there's empires that, you know, people don't even speak about or know about. They think that there was only, you know, the empires in Europe. That was the only empires people really know about. But there was Ghanaian empires. There were Southern African empires, Western African empires. There was more empires in Africa, more than likely, than anywhere else in the world, just because of the amount of time Africa has had civilization. So if you want to speak about culture, you can't have that conversation without putting Africa in it.
Right. And I just want to touch really quick. We all know, like about a week ago, I believe it was about a week ago. And if anybody has any questions, we'll have the video up that I'm about to talk about right now. And this video, this is from the channel, the New Africa channel. And we will also welcome any correspondence they may want to have with GCO Network as well. But we got this information in this video from the New Africa channel. And this is President Museveni of Uganda, and he's apologizing to African descendants for slavery. And a lot of people really didn't understand how powerful that was, right? That means that somebody in this position is recognizing the transatlantic slave trade, how it came about, what happened, who it affected, what were the ramifications long term to us from that, how we were ripped from Africa, stripped of our culture, our name, our religion, our everything that we know to be true as to who we are, and even our ancestors, you know. So but again, this video is it's about 5 minutes and I think 22 seconds, and President Museveni apologizes to African descendants for slavery. And I think people need to really go and check that. I don't know, we may have to reach out to the New Africa channel and see if, you know, we can repost that or just post that, and of course, you know, give them their support for the information that they provided. But, you know, and he talked about how some African nations were complicit in the slavery, just not knowing, just not fully understanding what was happening or the impact of what was going to happen, and the longevity of it, right? And that's something that's a completely different conversation. That's a whole different side of discussion. But to see a video like this, understand that somebody in his position as the president of Uganda is a republic, right, and publicly apologizing. And you see also in Kenya, okay, now they're saying, okay, hey, no, you guys are welcome. You're welcome. Come home. Come here. Come to Kenya. Come to Uganda. Come here. Come to Africa. So that goes back to okay, what's drawing us? Everybody knows where we're supposed to be.
Yep, absolutely.
Everybody knows where we're supposed to be. People say, I don't know if I'm gonna get kicked off the channel for this. but people know the impact. Can you imagine? Let's just say, and this is how important we are to the Western economy. Let's just say 20% of us left. That is 20% of your economy. Because nobody purchases like us. Nobody. No group of people. Nobody. Not one. I don't care if you put them together. They don't. We spend more money. I mean, we average $24 billion in sneakers and luxury items.
Come on now.
We average that. That's not even that. Listen, that's not even holidays. We ain't even got into the holiday money. Don't nobody celebrate like we do. I'll wait.
Come on.
So you say you want us to come. You know, in my mind now, why wouldn't we leave? Like, why wouldn't we? And even if you don't leave and go fully live full time, man, get a stake inside of Africa. Own a business, buy Airbnb, get a company, do something, because that would be your plan B. Yeah. That'll be your plan B, right? Because listen, nobody wants to say it out loud, but man, we here because we were brought here. We're not here because we chose to be here.
Right.
So that's just what it is.
But you know, Will, there's a syndrome where when the hostage starts to sympathize with this captive, with the person that captured him. You know,
and I say that's a choice. That's a freaking choice. That means you accepted it for yourself. You accepted it as a legacy for your family. You accepted it for your entire culture. You've accepted that. That's a choice you made because it was easy and it was convenient.
Yep, and you know
that's
scary.
What it is.
It's scary because you got some black people that nowadays feel like, oh, you know, slavery was a choice, or they feel like, oh, you know, racism, people should stop talking about it. We're in a new day and age, and this is black people. You know, we've heard of some black people say that I don't teach my child the bad things about racism.
Oh my God!
I only teach them the good things.
Oh my God!
I only teach them the good things about slavery. I don't teach them the bad things.
Literally.
And this is real. This is real life stuff that were told to us by other black people. She said, "Oh, I don't teach my son the bad things about slavery." Well, what good things were there?
Yeah.
And
she didn't teach her son about being black. Like they didn't identify as African American.
You're just American. That's what she said. She said, "Son, you're just American." Yeah, and that's dangerous, you know, because you might teach your child that, but they're walking outside, and that's not how America views them. So at the end of the day, you know, we have to think about our cultural. We have to think about all these aspects we talked about today. Spiritual, everything connects to the reason why we're going home and why it's beneficial for you to go home.
Right.
I'm just gonna say this. And I agree with everything you guys have said, but I'm just gonna say this. Why does every other ethnic group get to be together, build together, and when we want to do it, it's a problem?
Yep. Every city has.
It's cool when they do it. It's cool when they do it. And listen, you know, it's not even about, you know, trying to start rile anybody up or anything like that. But these are things that are simply the truth, and they exist. And these are conversations that have been had and should be had, and they should be discussed and debated even more. You know, because why? Tell me the problem with what is the problem with black folks getting together? What is the problem with us starting our own community? What is the problem with us starting our own schools? Doing that?
The problem
what is the problem?
The problem is that we're the majority in the world, and once we realize it, that's when things change.
Exactly. And not only are we the majority, but we are the innovators. We are the builders. We are the mathematicians and the geniuses.
And this is why Africa. This is why we should go back to Africa.
We're the athletes. We're the musicians. So if they were to allow us to come together, stay together, build together, and have our money circulate in our communities, then they would not exist.
And it's about this narrative right here. This narrative is what's going to change it. Imagine if LeBron James played half of his career in America, then he went to Africa and started a team and played half his career in there. Oh my goodness, the African sports industry would blow up. Serena Williams, she could start a whole tennis league. It would blow up. There's so many different athletes, entrepreneurs, mega titans in industry that's black, that's here in America, that could go over there but won't, because of whether it's endorsements, they don't know, or there's other things, factors that we couldn't even comprehend, that stops them from going and really pushing and driving Africa forward. So we made this podcast today about why Africa, and all of these reasons are important, family. And we want you guys to do your own research. We want you to do your own due diligence, because at the end of the day, everything that we're saying, we've done our research for, but we want you to also put your own eyes on it, so you can say, GCO Network, they're not lying. They're only, bringing facts to the people, and they're trying to educate in a way that's pushing the narrative forward. Like I always say, in order for us to drive to the future, we have to be the vehicles of change. And that's the only way that's going to happen.
Right.
And I'm just going to leave y'all with this nugget. Sometimes people don't want to talk about that. Sometimes there's not a discussion about what's behind the scenes, right? And, there's some things that we don't want to talk about. And I'm just going to say this, just a quick nugget. So we know about the Oscars, right? The Oscars.
Right.
Annually, right? The Oscars. Okay. So why do you think nobody has ever talked about where the Oscar gets its name from?
Yep.
Right? So we're talking about Oscar Mitchell. And guess who and what he was? He was a black man.
Mm.
Yep. You've never seen anybody talk about where the Oscars got their name from.
But who's won the most Oscars? Not melanated people. So we just want to leave that with your family today. We want to make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. We want to make sure that you go back and watch our previous podcasts, our previous episodes, because this is so important. Supporting Black media is so important, and supporting rising media in the Gambia and Africa abroad is important as well, because that's the only way that we can take control of our narrative. This is the only way that we'll be able to say, okay, we have an active stake in what we want our future to be. So please, family, like, comment, and subscribe, and share this.
Right. And we want to encourage y'all to start talking in the comments. We really want to start having conversations with you guys down below in the comments, and let us know. Obviously, if you're watching this, if you've been subscribing to any of our channels, you are interested in Africa. So the question for you is, why Africa? Why are you interested in Africa? Is it any of the topics that we just talked about, or is it some topics that we missed, and you can kind of enlighten us on why you chose Africa, or why you're thinking about Africa, or why you're interested in Africa? So make sure that you guys tune in for our next episode. We had a great time talking to you, family. Bye.